GM, everybody, and welcome to the program. This is a hacking on Samui Wallet for Solana Cypherpunk Hackathon, and this is episode 9 of season 1. Let me get this stuff ready and we can get started. So I'm going to switch to this other channel and share my screen. 1 second, please. Muting my tab so I don't hear myself speak. And we're going to dive right in because today I have an amazing announcement to make. The thing is that we managed to send the first transaction using Samui Wallet. It's there. It happens. 25th of October at 2:26 Azerbaijan Standard Time. I sent 1 SOL to one of my wallets and it arrived. Now, for those of you that were here yesterday, you did see I was messing around with this a bit. And then luckily, Toby sent me a link to a page on the Solana Docs website that actually explained how to send SOL. Now, this is, let me quickly get to this page. And it's going to be this one. Yeah, this should be the one. We're just going to open it right here in my dev browser, the red one. And yeah, so how to send SOL. I was well on my way. And in fact, the issue that I had here with the RPCs is still there. Now, I didn't dive in and try to fix this. Instead, I also didn't use any, which was something that I didn't want to do yesterday. I did basically the next best thing. I did a TSExpect error, which basically silences TypeScript's error. But this was the error that we had yesterday, where the RPCs are basically scoped to a certain cluster, in this case mainnet or devnet, and we dynamically configure our RPCs. Now, I've been dealing with this before, and yesterday we took a brief look at Gil, how Gil fixes this. They have a bunch of overrides. We may do the same. I'm not sure. I don't really care at the moment. The important thing is that it works. So let me see if it still works. So I'm here in my dev wallet, and I reckon this may be a bit larger. So in my dev wallet here, this is Alice, account 1, and account 2 is Bob, and Bob has 0.44 SOL. So let's top up Bob's balance a little bit. So we go here, we pick our Solana wallet, we add Bob's address here, which I got in my clipboard, and let's give him 2 SOL. Submit, and this will now send out the SOL and say the SOL has been sent. Beauty. We don't receive a link to the Explorer. That's something that I want to add. We don't, there's a lot of things that don't happen, but the basic here works, and that's like the important part. So if we're here and we refresh, we should see that Alice now has 10 SOL. And if we go to Bob, it should now have 2.44. Beautiful, beautiful. This is exactly what we need at this stage. And another thing that I kind of wanted to share, like when I started this project and when Toby and I decided on what we need to build, I created a list. And I just went back to this list and I just want to show it to you because, yeah, it might be inspiring for somebody. I checked the list and so there's this, it's not a secret. This is just an internal document. We didn't really share it. But I figured while I was starting, hey, what does a minimal wallet need to do? So this goes to our project introduction. There's no open source wallet. This is a tweet that actually inspired me to pick up a project. So Amir here says open source wallet on Solana. Anyone? Solid? Are you there? Let me actually bull tweet. We just sent the first devnet transaction for with the new open wallet on Solana. I can't be bullish enough There you are. Let's make sure we add this thing. Just bull posting, keep on bull posting with this thing. Also going to bookmark this tweet. Now, this tweet, I already mentioned it before, and actually the thing that I saw, I think I saw a retweet from Dean. But this thing is also cool, where Toby actually say, let's build it. And I reached out to Toby at some point. I was stuck with something. I wanted to have his opinion. I knew he's a crack dev. And I was like, if anybody knows this, it'll be Toby. I basically asked him to hop on a call, and I was like, dude, I got this idea. And I went all in. I was like, I got this idea. Let's try to get a hackathon. Let's do the hackathon. Let's try to win. Let's try to get into the incubator. And then that should both give us funds so we could go full time on this. And his answer was basically, I'm in, let's do it, which was incredibly nice. So this was what set that out. And I linked this here just for historical reasons, because I think it's cool. We'll feature this in our pitch deck as well, briefly. So the goal is to build an open source wallet extension under the MIT license. Now, and this was the thing that I want to say, I started to list out user stories. And today I went in and I was able to take all of these things off. So I can manage a switch between clusters, create an account with a mnemonic, import an account with a mnemonic. I can derive and import a key pair into an account. I can manage, rename, delete, etc. my accounts and key pairs. I can see the SOL balance from a wallet. I can see the token accounts. I can see wallet activity. I can see USD value of my assets, copy the address and scan it from a QR code, send assets to another wallet address. Now, technically, this is not all assets. This is just SOL. I can configure my own backend service API. So let's quickly take a look at that. We added an API and we have now this API endpoint here. So in the settings, you can point it to your own backend API. So if you want to use our wallet extension, but you want your own backend API for whatever reason, you can now configure this. I can run a wallet locally to quickly add new features. Well, yeah, that's the only way to do it right now. And there's two things here. I can see NFTs and I can send assets to a Solana domain. I should actually add here, I can send tokens and token 2022 tokens. I will update this, but I was pretty happy with how it all went and that I managed to tick all of these things off. I guess I can open a wallet pop-up is there, and I can open a wallet in the sidebar is also there. Now there's a few things here. I can select an accent color from a palette. Nah, this is not going to happen in the hackathon mode. Dark and light, probably not going to happen in hackathon mode. Switching English and Spanish. So we do want to have a I18N. So this is something that's fairly soon on the list. And I can switch between USD and euros. Also something that we will add fairly soon. Though these three things on the end, actually these four things, this is all about like appearance and how the app localizes, I guess, to your language or to your currency. I don't see these as must-haves for our hackathon submission. So I figured I'd share this, and I'm incredibly bullish on how it goes. And speaking about bullish, Sandeep, my friends, good to see you here. Thought I'd missed the stream. No, sir, you're ready. You're well in for the show. You fell asleep. Well, it's what is it? 3, 4, 4:50? It's almost 5 a.m. So yeah, give yourself a break. You might fall asleep during the show. So now with all of that, as soon as I sent this transaction and I was like, what I'm going to do tonight in tonight's show, I was kind of I was not that inspired. And to be totally frank with you, it's not that I'm inspired, not in the big picture. I'm incredibly inspired to work on this project. But what I have to do right now that actually makes a difference, I don't really have something ready. So now we've looked at the HackMD, but I also have like a little notepad here inside my editor. Where is this thing? I reckon I can just navigate to it. Scratches. Samui Wallet. So here's another list that I was just, okay, we can add the mainnet warning beta. That might actually be a nice thing to add. So the idea here is if you go create and you select mainnet, then we want to have a warning here. So let's actually start with that one because that's fairly nice. We can tick a few more things off because this is stuff that we all did. So we can add this one and that one. In settings UI account dropdown, handle the case where there is no active account. I do think we handle that. If we don't have an active account and active wallet redirect to the onboarding screen, well, right now we redirect to the accounts screen. So implement or onboarding screen and redirect a new user there. This is what this should be. If we delete an active account or cluster or wallet, what should happen? We can prevent this from happening. This makes it so that you won't be able to delete that last account. Or we can figure out what account will be the next active account. Now, I'm not fairly sure what Toby and I decided here. I know we discussed this. Luckily, I don't have to do this right now. There is some other thing that I want to do, and I'm going to add it to the list here. And that is like use more transactions in the database layer. For instance, if we delete an account, we want to delete all of the related wallets. Probably all the related wallets. And there might be more. We might figure out more. Add a relation to wallet into account. This actually goes with the database. So that is the thing. Create an index for icons. Yeah, sure. Not super interesting. Create a clean abstraction around getting and setting preferences in the UI. Well, yes, we have this. We actually ended up with a very similar to this. We're now using a pattern very, very similar to what React Hooks provides us. So this is all done. And yeah, so I love having these checklists because it's just really motivating to see things that I've done during the work on here. And yeah, I'm going to move this one down. And let's actually start with the last one here, a mainnet warning, because I have said before that a mainnet warning is something that I want to add there before people go do this. Now, I am going to add some more low priority, I guess, items. So website, we now have a website, samui.build. And on the website, we want to have a privacy. So privacy policy and terms of service explanation on how to set up the dev environment. So a bunch of these things. And the other nice thing of this list, a list like this, is that you will find stuff to do if you're like me right now and you're like, hey, I don't know what the hell I should work on next. So let's do this mainnet warning. Samui shows is not a sleep therapy. They make me active per se. That's amazing. I honestly, before I started the show, I was like, I don't know what to work on. Should I start? And the moment I pressed go live, I was super happy that I did. So thanks everybody for being here and sticking with me on this journey. So let's see. We're going to create a new branch. I'm actually going to see if this, where am I? Git status. Okay, nothing to do. It's all clean. I just want to see if this PR got clean. It did. It's green. I love it. Is it? Yes, it's green. Here we are. And files changed. So a bunch of these things are UI. We can actually review it together. So this is just an import. Now, this is the tab for tokens. So the wallet buttons, there's just a send option here. I already know what I can do next, which is I'm going to add this list here, Samui Wallet. We want to have a add airdrop button. If on Solana DevNet or Solana. Actually, if not add airdrop button with button sheet if cluster not is Solana mainnet. So we do want to have this airdrop button for any non-mainnet cluster. And then show airdrop for all non-mainnet clusters. Show a link to the faucet for Solana DevNet and Solana testnet. Great. So this is something else that needs to be done here. And the reason I came up just reviewing my PRs, this is where we want to have something coming out of this button that will handle. Now, as always, I'm not going to merge this tree today. It's not perfect. So I'm just going to leave this right here. Oftentimes I pick out stuff and merge it separately. So this token balance item, it shouldn't be living in the central transaction. This should be a separate one. It's kind of unrelated. As well as like, well, these things are actually the token dropdown. And yeah, so this is on the front end. We get a hold of a Solana client based on the cluster that we have selected. So this is our active cluster. We get a key pair signer from our secret key, the thing that we store in IndexedDB. And then we create a sol, create and send sol transaction. Now, one of the challenges we still have to figure out is that this one here, this send sol option, this works with the key pairs stored in local storage. And we need to figure out how this all is going to pan out with other transactions. Anyway, not something to deal with right now. I added some dependencies, and this is actually the logic that I built out from the example from the website. So I split this up in two, create and send sol transaction, where I take a Solana client, I add in these things. Now, one of the things I really like is to keep these properties as long as possible, just a normal Solana, just a normal JavaScript type. So just a string. And then at the last moment is where I'll convert this thing. So here I say, okay, actually this amount converted to LAMP ports. Oh, and this, by the way, it's an address, which I already verified here. So this thing will throw an error if that doesn't happen, which makes this thing throw an error, which then makes this thing throw an error, which I conveniently don't handle, which I'm fine. Field set is also something that should go into a separate PR, as well as, well, no, yeah, maybe this change, but that's very minor. Anyway, back to this mainnet warning. How are we going to do this? So I'm going to go here, cluster settings, and actually on mainnet. So essentially in the add screen here, this is where I want this stuff to exist. Let me make this a little bit smaller. So yeah, let's get this screen up. Let's go here and say add cluster. So in the settings UI cluster form create, we can take form and we can take form.value. So I guess I can say form.value get values type. If it's mainnet, I can show warning. Otherwise, we just show no. So this should be a fairly simple change. Now I might need a watch property here. Yeah. So form dot watch. Let me see. So I'm in the so cluster type or watch type is form dot watch type. Now let's see if this is the thing. Form watch type is that show warning. There we go. Show warning, no warning. Amazing. I wonder if we want to do it here or if we want to do it right there. In addition, I already mentioned this, we kind of want to have this form, we kind of want to have this thing auto detect, basically. So if you drop in a Solana endpoint here, it should auto detect whatever it is that you're connecting to. In addition, currently Solana only, most likely will going to be Solana only for at least the foreseeable future. So I might as well just replace Solana space here with nothing. So just we get devnet, localnet, mainnet, testnet. The warning. I'm going to add warning inline just where you select it, because for now you select it. I'm going to add it right here. So if we do mainnet show warning, great. And the warning I want to share here is there's an alert. And this alert is constructed of, it's not an easy thing. Don't use mainnet in production. This is not what we want to say here, but this is what we want to have. So I'm going to quickly grab ShadCN and actually move that right up here, ShadCN. And hey, hello there. Just zoom in and search for alerts. Another great suggestion from Toby is to add these add shortcuts like this. So you can just say add cluster, and then it'll take you to the add cluster screen. Should be relatively simple. Building blocks are all there. Just something that I'm not going to get nerd sniped into at this moment. Now, one of the things here, variant destructive. So we can just add this thing. It may actually want to be a destructive alert. Did I not copy this? Why would I not copy it when I'm right there? Terminal is not defined, so we can say alert icon, alert triangle icon, sure. This wants to be a destructive one, and then alert destruction description, get it from here. So if we domain that, heads up. Now, this doesn't look very good. In general, I think these things look kind of wacky. Sorry, Mr. ShadCN. I called your software wacky, but let's go to this alert with TSX. And what I don't really like about it, now I have to update this standard component. And that's kind of the whole idea. That's the whole premise. But still, it feels kind of off. Just like that mosquito that was here. What I want to do here is add a warning. So I want to say warning. And let's instead of, okay, this is destructive text. Now, destructive text, I think, gets set in the global.css. So in styles, here we have a destructive option, where destructive is this red. I want this thing to be like yellowish, right? So we have this like warning color. So this is why I'm not like super happy with how this thing works. I do know that this summer component, which is the toaster, I think the toaster has certain themes, but I'm not sure. So if I go to the shell layout here and I look at toaster, I do toaster rich colors. Now toaster props would come from this rich colors is a Boolean here. And here we have a warning. So essentially, I'm interested in the summer definition, I guess. What is a warning colored like? Like there must be some color codes in here. There you go. Warning, background, HSL, warning border, warning text. Interesting. Interesting. Now my ShadCN and Tailwind skills are definitely not good enough to figure this out, and it should be pretty boring to do this. So let's try if we can fake it. And let's basically do, so text yellow 500. This actually already doesn't look that bad. Text yellow 500, 90%. Actually not mad at what this looks like. And we say text background. So we can do a border yellow 500. And this is actually kind of what I was after. I like this. Now let me quickly see, because we do have another warning, which is this warning about experimental software. I just realized I have something that's very similar. This warning about experimental software. So rounded 0, background yellow 500. Okay, background is here. Maybe we can get rid of this one. No, I think I like that. Okay. In fact, this may be a very good direction of going here. So let's go here and say, okay, we're going to add a class, a good old CSS class. We're going to say UI warning. I like to prefix my stuff with UI. And just do it like this, UI warning. And then see if we can set this UI warning. We can, but then the background is not set here. That's interesting. Can I import this? No, I cannot. It's interesting that this yellow background is not set. So anyway, let's just pop it into here then. UI warning this, and then inside the alert, I'm gonna say UI warning this as well. And then go back to clusters, select mainnet. Why is this background here not working? So background yellow 500, background 500, background red 500, 400, whatever. It's not working. Okay. For now, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not going to add this class because it didn't pan out the way I supposed to be. It's supposed to be the way I had it in mind. So I'm not going to do this. I'm going to leave this styles to somebody who actually know what they're doing. And inside the form create, we're happy. Inside the warning, I'm just going to undo these changes. Just leave this as is. I don't really care that it's inconsistent. In the end of the day, I'm not a UI designer. So what I do want to do is get rid of this tag. And in fact, I want to make this a proper component because I'm going to reuse this inside the other form as well. So this is settings, UI, cluster, warning, mainnet. And we want to show this thing. And actually, I'm going to pass in the type, which is of type cluster type. And then if type not is Solana mainnet, well, in that case, just return null. And this should make it pretty clean to just add it here. And then type is the watch type. Beauty. Then I pop this file out of it into its own thing. Let ESLint do its thing. And then in the cluster form updates, we're going to add same watcher. So same watcher. Now this may very well be the same form at some point, but that's very much optimization. I don't care too much about this duplication right now. So it's below the message right here. So let's add this thing. And I have some Helios RPC address actually that I found in some service. It's not going to work. I mean, it's not going to connect for me, but I don't care. But if I do this edit, you still have this warning. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. In addition, I think it makes sense for the update cluster to not accept changing the type. Like, why would you? You're adding a cluster, it's mainnet or any other cluster. And then if you want to change its type, you can just add a new cluster of that type. I think that makes most sense. And I'm going to double down on this. So I'm going to be kind of making an unrelated change. And why is this thing nagging? Because this one may be undefined. It may be undefined. So we can do that two ways. But I'm going to do it if not type or type is mainnet. So now the thing supports a undefined type. This is beautiful. I'm going to rework this and I'm going to say this one here, toggle group, you're actually disabled. And with that, it's kind of weird to have a field that's enabled, disabled, and then again enabled. So I'm going to make the cluster screen or the cluster type the first one in the form. And here in the update, it's not going to be required. So much though, I'm going to call it and I'm going to say, hey, schema update right here, omit type. So I'm really just going to formalize the type is not a thing that we omit. Cluster type is not something that you can change after setting it. Just because I feel like it doesn't make any sense. If we get any complaints about it or something, somebody wants this for any reason that they can kind of justify it, we'll consider it. Now, interestingly enough, this now says I can watch it. It makes sense because this form is dynamically typed. Actually, this thing is no longer there. Ah, okay. Let's see. What can I do here? I can actually get rid of this thing right here. Form item. And I can probably just replace it here. And then instead of field value, I say default value is item.value. Item.type must say. And this type is item.type. And now it looks the same. It's just not an active form field. And JSX props. Okay, bunch of changes here. Edit cluster now allows you to change the name and the endpoint and the name, but it doesn't allow you to add select type of cluster. You can't select the type of cluster after you created it. So this one here, question is, do we actually need all of these descriptions? I just added it because I used some random form generator to generate the initial forms. And as of that moment, I just went ahead and copy pasted all of this stuff and just adjusted it. All of these things are something that a great UX person will be able to tell me. Great. Okay. So now that we have this one, we can say mainnet heads up. Now, actually, let's change the warning. Heads up. Solana mainnet cluster use of the Solana mainnet cluster is at your own risk. This is experimental software. Usage of the Solana mainnet cluster is at your own risk. Do not use any real funds. Like, we can add a whole boatload of warnings here. Do not use any real funds. We don't offer support, and this code is not audited. Please know what you're doing if you decide to continue. Now, I don't think we need all of this, honestly, but at least we have a warning. Luckily, Toby is a native speaker, so he can figure out what he wants here. I'm just going to throw it at that. So there we go. Cluster mainnet warning. Or actually, I'm going to quickly pop it into Gemini, figure out what Gemini has to say. Gemini, can you suggest a good title description here that's shorter but conveys that says the same thing. So let's see. Let's use my AI to do this. This is experimental software. I like that. Description: use mainnet at your own risk. Code is unaudited and unsupported. Yeah, I guess it basically says the same thing. I'm just going to go with whatever it says. So we're going to say cluster warning mainnet. This one can go. Cluster warning mainnet. I'm just going to add it as one line instead of all of these. Don't use real funds. Great. Okay. Got a little screenshot here and have a little screenshot here as well while we edit the thing. Okay. Here, these update form, I need to do the same thing with the label. So replace Solana with nothing. Great. Awesome. So this is a feature of the settings. Add a warning. Add an experimental software warning to cluster add edit form. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Now, another thing that I kind of wanted to figure out, I just wanted to have this in there. This is going to be sitting on top of SendSol, but it shouldn't need to sit on top of SendSol. So let me actually go ahead and rebase this on main. So git rebase main. So just, that's not how it works. Take the commit head, git reset hard origin main. Let's actually make sure that we're on latest main. We are. Great. Now we're at the same, and then say git cherry pick this hash And now we're just sitting right on top of main. Git push force with these. Beauty. Then inside here, open a pull request. I'm just going to make it a real pull request right away. I'm just going to add some screenshots. And then I was about to type what I all did, but remember we have ellipsis, and ellipsis will type this for me. So that's very convenient. Now, the one thing that I do want to add here, and after that, I am going to wrap it up. So today is literally going to be a short little show. The thing that I'm going to do is make a connection to the API from the front end. So we have this API. We have the API right here. And we want to be able to call this from the front end. Now, we're not going to be making raw fetch requests, at least not from the React components right away. That wouldn't make any sense. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go back to main, and I'm going to say SDK React. So we will have a package very much like BBDB React and Solana Client React. We'll have an SDK and an SDK React package. I'm going to work from the front end back to the back end. So I'm going to start with a React UI component called SDK React. And this SDK React package is the one that we're going to consume. Now, where are we going to consume this? In the dev section. So we're going to enable developer mode. So we get this thing here. And this is going to be its own proper SDK section. Now, this SDK section, this is where we will do all of our SDK stuff. So gonna call this one SDK. Gonna call this SDK caps and this SDK all lower, and then copy the Solana one and rename this SDK. Awesome. And then we go into that file, dev genesis hash. So let's make this thing dev SDK uptime. So I want to have the uptime of the server. This is just something that a lot of my systems tend to have, just kind of a health endpoint, if you will. And let's say SDK or get uptime. Now, what I want inside of this is very much, let's do a small diff here. This is very much TBD. Do I need anything? I think I need a button and results. So data, this is all mutation data result. Now, endpoint, we don't need it. We don't need this. We don't need this. We will need to figure out our mutation. So this one is actually going to come from the use get Solana cluster. So this one, export function, we want to call this one use SDK uptime. And this returns a mutation. I reckon it might want to be a promise, but I just like the idea of having a button that I can click and it returns something. So in our API, I want to have this uptime thing. So there you go. It's going to be uptime, and we're going to send back. I'm going to do a JSON object, and it's going to be process.uptime. Now, I realized that this might not work well on Cloudflare, where we host this thing. But we'll see soon enough if there's any merit to doing this. And what I'm actually going to do here, I am going to use the raw fetch API uptime. And I'm going to use our preferences API here. So we have a use preference, use DB preference API endpoint. And I can just say API endpoint. This is kind of nice, right? And I already see use API endpoint, where I can say basically, hey, give me a path, which is a string, and then return the const result is new URL of the API endpoint. Now, why is this string or null? Okay, this is something that we need to figure out because throw new error API endpoint is not set. Return result. So now I can say endpoint is use API endpoint, and I want to call this thing uptime. And then let's console log this thing endpoint, and then fetch endpoint. And then we're going to say then rest of JSON and dot catch error fetching uptime and print the error. Great. Okay, use SDK uptime. Preferences is not set. There you go. It's actually crashing where I thought it would not crash. API endpoint preference is not set. Interesting. Now, I'm fairly sure it is set, and I'm fairly sure this is going to be a race condition. So, because if I do an empty string here, and basically log the update SDK endpoint here, what I think I'm going to be seeing is that I see it printed twice. So let's refresh. Yep, it's going to be empty, 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 empty until it's done. This is very, very interesting. Use DB preference. And it might be because of this live value, where we get DB reference get value. Let me see if I get it directly, what happens then. So const API endpoint not live is this one with a DB, with a API endpoint. And I'm just going to say API endpoint not live and API endpoint, and then refresh this again, and then see if one is set the whole time and the other is not. What do we get here? Okay, so this wants to be a promise. Got it. So it's an asynchronous action. Now, what I would normally do in this case, if I need something like this across the whole app, I wrap it in a provider and I let the provider deal with it and basically not show anything until the provider is done. Now, at this point, we hardly have any providers in here. So is this something that I want to be able to do? Like, one way to look at it is to say, go to our shell providers here. And inside of this thing, or maybe even outside of this client provider, but let's say inside, I'm just going to add a fragment just to have something to draft without prettier reformatting the whole world. Inside here, we could basically load references and don't render children until that is done. Now, This is kind of nice because if somehow preferences won't load, let's say database is corrupt, not even sure how that would happen, but for the sake of argument, database corrupt, can't load anything, we want to show an error message. Because in that case, if the database is corrupt and you can't load anything, the app will be not usable anyway. So this is an interesting thing. Not something I'll fix today, but definitely something that I am going to put on the list. Figure out preferences are loaded async. It takes time for them to load. And this is in the API endpoint request in season 1, episode 9, live stream when building the use API endpoint hook. Just so I got a frame of reference. I need to figure this out. I can work around this for now, but this is something we definitely need to figure out. Like, I wouldn't be mad if the whole application shell would be in loading state until all of these preferences are loaded, which is literally just one table. Then we have initial values, and then we should be able to provide these values being read-only, because like TypeScript is right here. This may be null. In fact, it is null initially for the first like somewhat milliseconds. Now, I'm going to have this return undefined, and then I'm going to say enabled. This one has no enabled. Okay, I'm just going to say if not endpoint. It's just going to return null here. Why does this not like it? Mutation null is not assignable. Promise null. Do I need to do promise.resolve? Null? Is that what it wants? Convert it to async. Sure. Don't you dare to do a try catch here. There we go. Good. Okay. Now, is it messy? Oh, hell yeah, it's messy. Do I care? No. Error failed. Course. Amazing. Progress. Beautiful. Here, course. So we can say app.course, app.use, CORS, and this can't be where this needs to be coming from. It's coming from here. Course is a function, and it takes origin, and we're going to say anything. Don't we just love it? See a todo. Localhost uptime, internal server error. Okay. Let's see what it actually does when I call this thing right away. So copy link address. So we'll just curl this thing, internal server error. Wow, would you look at that? Internal server error for fetching a process.uptime. Is it messy? Yeah. Do I care? No. Hotel Trivago. I don't think I get the reference. If it's a series or a movie, that's why, because I don't tend to watch series or movie. I'm kind of a cultural retarded person when it comes to these things. I have no idea about this stuff. Now, why does this not work? Well, process is not defined. Now, there's something that you can do in Cloudflare Workers, which is called the node compat thing, node compatibility. So do hono cf workers process uptime node compat, and I reckon compatibility flags, or this one, Node.js compat. So let's actually pop into our Wrangler JSON and add this in front of compatibility flags. And now we're going to do this, and then we're going to run the same. And then we have an uptime. It's 0 seconds. Okay, so this is interesting. Why is it 0 seconds? Anybody that knows the answers may scream. Well, I kind of think that it's 0 seconds because at the moment we request this endpoint, a new process will be spun up. It's probably not a new process in the sense of an operating system process, but I'm fairly sure it's some kind of forking mechanism in which it considers I haven't been up. I'm restarting from 0. I think that's why uptime doesn't work. So let's actually see if there's anything else here that we can kind of print that's interesting, because it would be nice to have a health endpoint or anything endpoint that's somewhat interesting to see. Okay, so maybe we just say, you know what, destructure whole process for now. Oh, there's definitely stuff for us to do. I like it. So we can say version process.version, which is not a function. And this one wants to be called health Z. Now it wants to be called health Z. And also I'm going to give you title. Sure. Uptime then is 0, but we can still have the uptime. Looks like it's property dot uptime dot title. This is a string. So let's go back here. Platform Linux PID1. Like this is the other thing. Like PID1, it's the first process, so it definitely is some restarted. It's probably not a VM, but some virtual environment where it's a PID1. It's a platform Linux. And I'm not going to do all of these underscored things. Yeah, here it is. Architecture. So we can add some nerdy stuff. So we can say architecture. And then default's not what I'm interested in. std out, domain env. Env might be interested in, but it's kind of security risk, right? Because this is where you do like your, this is where you add your database credentials and all of that. And you don't want your API to expose these kind of things to the front end. That's not what I'm here for. So yeah, let's get rid of this. Let's then make this thing health Z and say SD health Z. And we're gonna run this thing, get health Z, on white space. Okay, I made a mistake. Mistakes have been made. Okay, it's not uptime, it's health Z. Health Z, okay, add the uptime, title, platform, architecture, like nice. And then in here, health Z, health Z, health Z. Got the uptime, health Z. Okay. Now I am going to see what health Z actually comes back with. Why does the convention of using health Z for application best practices come from? Kubernetes Docker uses this convention health Z as an implement. It's called the Z pages. status Z, RPC Z. Open source tools like Prometheus implement this pattern by coming to a well-known endpoint to collect metrics from your application. Beautiful. What health Z does? Fast API health Z. Like, is it common for this thing to return stuff? Because what I can imagine is that health Z, if we like connect to a database, or maybe even more realistic, if we connect this API to a cluster, or more likely a whole array of clusters, that this thing gives back the status of this cluster. So is this cluster online? So I think health Z is kind of a sensible thing. Okay, so Sandeep says the Trivago meme came from this ad where they advertised before the Airbnb resolution about the lowest prices cumulatively from other websites. They shot it with a question-styled way. Hence, it became like a meme. Ah, there you go. Where if anybody converses in a QA-styled fashion, someone would just add Hotel Trivago. Guess I'm bad at explaining. No, that makes total sense. That makes total sense, and also makes total sense that I'm not aware. So I miss a lot of these cultural references when it comes to like movies, commercials, all of that stuff. Thanks for giving the context. So use SDK health Z, and then I'm gonna go into my SDK React and gonna add my first endpoint here. So take this one. Now we need to depend here on 10-stack query. 10-stack query comes from the catalog for sure. Hell yeah, it does. And pnpm install, which allows me to import the thing. And the use API endpoints. I guess this hook can also live inside here. Now, okay, endpoint string and path string. I don't know if there's a lot of merit into doing this way, but let's do it regardless. This may be string or undefined. Then the second there, if not endpoint, return null, return undefined. And here we can now say API endpoint health. Like, what's the whole point? Well, the whole point is that I'm not going to be concatenating these things. So this then takes the API endpoint or undefined. Yeah, it's kind of moving stuff around for the sake of it at this point, but let's not bother too much about this. So let's say API endpoint is this one. And it can be null. It can be null, and here it can be undefined. Okay, let's say you want to be all null. Beauty of having a language where these things are mostly the same, but not kinda. Use endpoint. And actually, does this need to be a hook? Well, I don't think it needs to be a hook. This can just be a function. So how about we create, let's first get this one out. An export function get API URL endpoint, which is endpoint, which is string or null, and path, which is a string. Add this one in, remove this. So now we have this endpoint. And then we can actually call it here. So what do we want to do? Get API URL endpoint and do health Z. Now, all of this is not even needed as soon as we will have a proper SDK generator, which will be at some point the thing. So we will have a proper SDK generator. This one needs to be here. This one wants to come here. Now, why is get API? Get API endpoint. Why is this complaining? Yeah, sort it all, baby. You should have been sorting this already. But somehow my TypeScript is not happy. So get API URL endpoint, because it's not. Should this be toString? It's not URL. Okay, do it toString. ToString or no, fetch URL. Great, happy people. Use SDK, use health Z, use this one. No, I don't need this one here. I do need this one here. Import it from React. There you go. This wants to live in its own file. Now the get URL function, API URL wants to live in its own file. And that leaves me with this hello.tsx, which can go. And then inside here, yeah, we don't depend on SDK React in the dev. So let's go to dev. Let's go package JSON. Let's say, you know what, SDK React, you are going to depend on this thing. Then npm install, which should get rid of this error message. I think it's already happy. It's just not you. It's this one. Use SDK health. We pass in the endpoints. We execute thing. We go here and we say get use SDK health Z. Submit error. Let's see what this brings us. Localhost health Z not found. So open a new tab. Not found. Interesting. Hell, if only I could type health Z. There we are. Submit. Awesome. I love it. I totally love it. Now, this is kind of a sketch for me, how I think this may look. Basic implementation of what a SDK looks like. So I'm going to be calling this SDK React. Work in process, sketching an SDK package for React. Name kind of says it on the tin. There's a few things that we can do in Hono land, and so Hono Open API is clearly a thing. So we can just add Open API, and then with Open API is this allows us to describe these things. We can even use Zod. It does the standard schema, so we can do Zod schemas here, which we're already using. So we're using Zod instead of Valibot, sure. And then we're going to describe our routes, and we're going to tell it like, hey, if the response is 200, this is what you will return in the documentation, and this is the type that will come back. So in our case, it will be content text JSON, where the schema is, and then we would be adding this thing as a schema. And the beauty of that is that you now have an Open API route / Open API, and we can use that with something like Hey API to, in fact, generate this API for our front end. So not something for today. I'm going to push this up just so that if I'm inspired tomorrow back home at my other laptop, that I can just pick this up and move. I really just wanted to get this flow going, just so we can see what do we need to do, have this basic infra set up, and as soon as we start adding actually functional stuff, whatever that may be, then we'll have the infrastructure ready to go. So this was a kind of an interesting stream in the sense that I didn't really have a plan. I did think it was a productive one, so that's very good. I'm going to leave it here. I think I'll be back tomorrow, but if I feel tomorrow similar to me, I might actually take the night off, Saturday, and just sleep timely for a moment and not at like 4:30 go back. So with that, I'm going to leave it here. Thanks everybody for watching. I love you all, and I hope you have a great rest of the evening.